Hi, welcome to my face. In about a week, I'm going to be getting jaw lipo and a whole little moment, and I'm going to have a new one. So I wanted to kind of to both document this experience and also talk a little bit about why. So at the end, put your response in the comments, please. So in 2016, I got tear gassed. Myself and my comrades were protesting the Klan in Stone Mountain, Georgia. It was a mess. Everyone I got protest with, to my knowledge, had health complications, two of whom died, in my opinion, as a result of those health complications. And it was a horrifying time. In my situation, or my case specifically, I put on 135 pounds in 8 months. I immediately started hemorrhaging. I was losing my teeth. I was functionally experiencing multi-system organ failure. It was excruciatingly painful, excruciatingly alienating and isolating. It was a really bad time. That being said, one of the biggest impacts for me was that I could no longer recognize my face in the mirror. And when I talk about that, even now, people assume it's like that regular, like, oh, we're all getting older and like, damn, where'd the time go or whatever. But I've never really been a superficial person. So it was never like that. It was more so my body changed so drastically, so quickly that physically the shape of my face was different. I could not recognize who I was looking at. And even though I intellectually knew that my body was changing, it was happening so fast that my brain could not catch up. Also, I have a traumatic brain injury, so it was a really bad time for me. And it got to the point where if I were to look into my reflection, even if we were like driving in a car and the glass window next to me, if I was eating and I look at the spoon, or if my phone's not on and I'm looking at the black screen, I would literally feel like I was experiencing psychic damage. Like it was not, it was not fun. But we're past that now. When I went to try and kind of figure out what was happening, kind of stop that health free fall, that multi-system organ failure that I was experiencing, I found what was called Cushing syndrome and then joined a bunch of support groups, which was integral in me kind of stopping that health free fall. And one of the things that came up a lot in those groups is that Cushing's, which my symptoms aligned with, at least partially, was nicknamed the ugly disease. So Cushing's is caused by a tumor, typically in the adrenal gland or the thyroid, pituitary gland or the adrenal gland. And it can be caused by other things as well, but that's typically the source. Some of the symptoms that you'll see is physical changes. So you'll have a stomach that's protruding, almost giving pregnant, or a beer belly. You'll have what's called a buffalo hump on the back of your neck in between your shoulder blades. That is a definition. That's the actual medical term. You'll also have what's called a moon face. Again, the actual medical term. These are not nice words to describe a truly horrifying, and in my case at least painful, illness. And being in those groups with those people who were navigating what was very literally an ugly disease made me have to come to terms with ugliness and my relationship to it. Previously, I'd been someone who, without my consent, had my body like used in ways that were not super fun, and access to me, or the assumption that someone had access to me in these kinds of ways, was often weaponized against me. So I had a complicated relationship with being viewed as desirable while I was also simultaneously being like a lot of nuance, a lot of layers. We don't got to get into that right now. That being said, with this group of people, they were dealing with ugliness as like this world changing, earth shattering, like all hope is gone type beat. And I literally could not afford that. For me, the way my health was progressing, I do not think that I would have lasted an entire year if I went without doing anything. So I had to do something. And the very first thing that I did was a psychological piece. I chose to re-engage with, or at least interrogate, how I defined and engaged with both ugliness and then also beauty. And so I define beauty, or I understand beauty to be two things: a capitalist construct, right, of a person being rendered into an object via objectification or commoditization, where because you are viewed as beautiful, you are now a tool either for yourself or those around you to use for their benefit. Now, I define beauty as devotion to one's own essence. So where a capitalist beauty serves an external desire or goal, or aligns an individual to an external standard, my definition of beauty aligns a person to their own inner flame. When I was sick, I use a metaphor. Imagine you're in like an infinitely large and infinitely dark room with like candles all across the floor, like the pillar candles, those kind, or prayer candle ones. And with each trauma, with each violation, and especially with each and every single pain from my illness, it was as if I was going through and blowing out each candle after candle after candle after candle until there was just one left. And I visualized myself as like literally sitting and staring at this one candle and being like, should I blow out this candle too? And then I had to have my first emergency iron infusion, where I had to literally choose to live or die. And that was a moment. But ultimately, my choice was not to blow out my flame, but to instead cultivate it. So again, if beauty is devotion to one's own essence, which requires you to first be curious about what your essence is, but then to cultivate an environment that sustains and feeds that essence, self-devotion to me is the act of feeding ritualistically your inner essence. And for me, I got into that through beauty. I practiced my skincare, my hair care, my body care, my outfits, the whole nine, to the best of my ability. And I did so in ways that were meant to affirm me. I would like say affirmations. And again, I was like mostly bedbound. So it took me like an entire hour to do my skincare routine, sitting in the bathroom, needing help from my whatever. But I would be touching my face gently and speaking affirmations over myself. I would be touching my body gently, especially my stomach, and speaking affirmations over myself. I was wearing wigs because I was not into doing my hair. I was very tired, right? But I would still be speaking affirmations over myself there. I turned beauty into a ritualistic practice for myself where I was trying to kind of build myself back up after all of my experience, and especially my illness tore me down. And I'm proud of the work that I did. A, because it saved my life, very literally, but also B, because I feel now that my sense of self is anchored so deeply in me. How I define beauty, what I look for in the world, like all of it is so curious about the things in front of me or myself. And I meet things like a student. I'm interested. I want to understand and then experience. And I love that. The previous way that I engaged with beauty was not like that at all. And it's healing, in my opinion, to choose beauty this way, because now not only is it an act of devotion, but it creates a desire and a willingness to be more embodied. And the more embodied I am, especially after so much trauma and the health issues, disassociation, friend, like, oh my God, that pushed me out of my body. It feels good to come back home. And even now, as I'm preparing to have a face that I recognize, I'm choosing a face that I literally recognize. I don't want a face that looks like anyone else's. I want one that looks like me. And in the meantime, as I am excited to have my face back, after years of not recognizing myself, I'm thankful that I took the time to love this face and to love this body. And I want to figure out a way that I could honor this face that I'm about to lose. I'm never going to have this face again. I'm sad. But I want to find a way to honor this face as I prepare to release it. Both A, as like a way to honor myself in my journey, yada yada, but also as a way to kind of remember that even as I return to a beauty standard that is both rooted in myself, but also aligns with the larger ideas of what beauty is under white supremacy and colonialism, yikes, that I'm still anchoring myself in my engagement in the world in this core philosophy of curiosity and self-devotion. So if you have an idea of what I can do to honor this face before it is gone forever, let a nigga know, 'cause I would like to. But yeah, in a week, I'm not gonna look like this no more. So get into it.